Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I'm Ross Marasso, and my returning guest today, always love having her on the program, Michelle Dickey, coach, consultant, trauma specialist, and author. She is the founder at Consulting for Heightened Awareness. You can find her at cdhrw.drmd.org. Michelle, welcome back to the program. What's new?
Hey, Ross. Yes, thank you. It's always great to be back. I wanted to go ahead and let everybody know that if you go to book a session on the website and it doesn't go through the first time, you want to keep trying. I had a fellow survivor that let me know. I didn't know that was going on, little quirks or what have you. It took her about 3 tries and it went through. Usually we don't have those issues, but when they come to my attention, I like to let everybody know, don't give up. Keep trying, because it is real simple. So that's that. And then a quick reminder for anyone who is wondering about the survivor testimonies that's also on the website. I highly encourage people to read those because it kind of gives them an idea, more of a feel of how the ministry and the work is doing for their survivors and all of that. So, and if they have any questions, never, ever, ever hesitate to reach out to me. I mean, that's what we're here for. I don't want to leave nobody in the dark.
So everyone knows that they're not alone out there.
Absolutely. That's really a big part of all of this, because a lot of survivors, they do, in the very beginning, they feel so alone because they got out and they're like, after being isolated with the abuser for however long. And so it tends to feel very, very lonely at the very beginning. And so that's why we are here. And I'm not the only one. There's lots of us out here to let them know that they don't have to go through all of that alone like that, like physically alone. I mean, they're never alone. Okay, well, obviously, because God is watching over them and protecting them. But he knows about the human connection that is going to be needed to start that healing and growth process to overcome the trauma and all of that, and to make sense, of what just happened, and all of that and everything else. So I wanted to also cover a very common tactic that these abusers will do. And it's one where it's how they trick their targets into chasing their tails.
Okay.
Yes. One of the most common ways many of us have had this discussion, that let's say we tell the abuser, okay, we're going to the store to pick up stuff. We've got a list or what have you, and we go to the store and we let them know we're going. Do they need anything? Right? Common courtesy. And we ask them and they'll tell us no. All right, so we go to the store, we get what was on the list and some other things, whatever, what we needed, we get back. And then the abuser will go, oh, by the way, I need, and that a lot of times they're testing to see if we will go back to the store. Yeah, because let's say we've told them, make sure you let me know, write it down, send me a text, whatever, while I'm there. But if we fall for it, we all have. We fell for it like a couple of times. Then we start to catch on, because when they start to do that all the time, every single time we go to the store and we come back and they play that, we're like, okay, hold on a second. The first couple of times we're like, yeah, well, we know, sometimes you might think of something later. Okay, we always give it that benefit of the doubt in the very beginning, but then the repetition, the pattern, and they just keep doing it every single time. That's how we start to catch on. And we're like, okay. And so the tip that many of us, if they do that, we still have to have what's called limited contact, right? Because let's face it, we can't avoid the abusers, 100%, really, especially if they're in our family. And so we want to keep things cordial, keep the peace, things like that, not walking on eggshells, but we see what they're doing. And so we just look at them and we tell them, like, well, then you're going to wait until the next time I go to the store. It's kind of like you take on the parent role, really. And you just tell them, well, too bad, because we've got other things that we want to get done, right? Let's say chores, whatever it is, go to work, all of that. So it's like they just want to see if they can get their target to chase their tail like that. And it's also another way. It's entertainment for them is what it is, in a really sick, twisted way. But they enjoy watching their targets do that, running
Mm.
around back and forth. Yeah, it's entertainment for them, and they think it's funny. But we realize that's not funny because they're just sitting there trying to waste our time. And it's like, okay, hold up a second, and yeah, that's one of many ways. There's another way they'll do it. Let's say you are preparing a meal, okay, and you
Okay.
have a couple of people over, and the abuser, for whatever reason, it's like, okay, you include them, and they sit down. Let's say that you're the host, the target is the host, and is cooking the meal, and so everybody else sits down, waiting, and so you ask the abuser, would they like anything else while you're up? And they said, oh, no, we're good. Got everything because you served the food, you've got the condiments, all the stuff you need. And then the target sits down. The abuser pipes up, oh, by the way, yeah, trying to get the target to get up and get down, get up, get down, get stuff without saying. I mean, it's just another part of their game that they like to play. It's all head game.
So let me ask you about this. So let's say I'm at such dinner, but I'm not the target. And let's just say it's a family member of mine and it's a boyfriend, right? And then they're over um, and then he asks, the target, oh, I did for, and she, of course, so she sits down and she's about to take her first bite of food, right? And he times it just right to say, oh, I did forget one thing. Does it thwart their plans if somebody like me would say, oh, you know what? Let me get that for you? Or is it better off to say, oh, yeah, it's in the fridge on the top shelf. Go help yourself. Like, what's a way to respond to these sorts of
Oh,
tests that they're doing?
well, that was a really good one right there. The latter one that it depends on the circumstance. That's why we always say you want to kind of like sit back and analyze for a second and go, okay, hold on, what would be the best way? Because you've got other people there too, right? You want to keep the peace. So the best way to handle that when the abuser does it, it's going to depend on a lot of things. But that really is a great one right there, especially if they are able. Okay, if they are able to get up and go get it themselves, then yeah, that's a really polite, kind way of saying, oh, sure, it is located, like you said, a top shelf in the cabinet, blah blah blah. Go help yourself. That is a really good one. That's polite. It's not, the narc not gonna like it,
Well, right.
obviously. But everybody else. But then, as far as another person stepping in and offering to go get it, that's perfectly fine too. So because let's say the target is already starting to eat their meal, right? And so it's like, okay, but yeah, either response would be very appropriate and definitely keep the peace and not. Yeah, it definitely won't. The narc isn't gonna like it, but it's like I say a lot, that's too bad because they really like to be babysat. I mean, we're talking about adults, that should know better, and they want to have their hand held all the time. They like to be babysat, and it's like, okay, they're very clingy, and needy like that. But they're also playing mind games as well. Just again, all part of that, getting the target to chase their tail over and over and over again. And eventually that is very exhausting. I mean, you stop and think, that if they're doing that throughout the whole meal, or, like every time you go to the store, every time you go somewhere or whatever, and they continue to do that, it drains the target of their energy, like seriously. And then the target is unable to, let's say, go complete a task that they really need to get done and really want to get done. And so that's another reason why the abusers do it, not just to get attention, but it's also to distract the target from being able to do something that the target wants to do. Because after all, we are dealing with abusers that have that entitlement mindset. They want everything to be all about them 100% of the time because they really truly believe it is, when most of the time it's not. It has nothing to do with them, but that's how they think. They're that twisted backwards thinking that they have, and it's all part of that. because they think the world owes them something too. And so that's what they'll do. And I have called them time wasters over on YouTube quite often, because that's exactly what they are. They love to waste people's time. And it's intriguing to watch. But we learn, it's all about developing thicker skin. When you find yourself kind of having to interact or deal with them. And that's one way of dealing with them, by not dealing with them, if you know what I'm saying. Like, okay, you kind of not forcing them. If you were to say, okay, it's located, whatever it is they said they needed, and it's located where they can go get it, help themselves. It's just kind of making them take accountability, and putting a little responsibility on them. So and that's another thing we realize about a lot of the abusers, when the ones like that really they want to be babysat. They don't want to take any responsibility, just like they don't want to take accountability for their own actions and their own behaviors like that. They don't, when they dish out the gas, like any type of abuse, they don't want to take accountability for it.
Right.
Same thing. Yeah. And same thing for responsibility. You see, as far as being a grown up, a responsible adult, they don't want to do that. It's like we realize, like, wait, so do they not want to grow up? No, they pretty much don't, because after all, their tactics, they've gotten their way, all their life behaving like that. So at a certain, let's say a certain age later, why would they feel that they need to make any changes? Why would they feel like they always got what they wanted by doing that? And so in their mind, they don't need to change. There's nothing wrong with them. They always get what they want. So that's why they continue behaving like that.
It's interesting, sort of, for the abuser, it seems like it can satisfy multiple outcomes for them, right? Because also, if they are getting you to chase your tail when they've asked you to do other things, by keeping you off your game, it now opens up the other possibility or benefit for the abuser to then create conflict over the other tasks that they had given you that maybe you would mess up or not complete, right? And you don't even have the presence of mind to know that none of this is your responsibility. And even further, that now gives them something to point to later on if you try to hold them to account, to then go, oh, you think you're so perfect because of this and that and the other, but they're really just creating situations to make everybody fail so that they can build their own defense to keep their game going.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head right there. That is exactly all part of their game plan. And they do that, especially if it's something that they have asked the target to do. Like, can you help me with this? And so the target will say, okay, sure, well, I'll help you with that. And then they will come up with stuff. They will cause some kind of conflict. Exactly. Or distraction that gets the target off of whatever it is they ask for help with. And then that doesn't get completed. So yes, the abuser will turn around and use that as ammunition to throw out more abuse. Absolutely. And then also blame it on the target, to try to make the target accept fault for something they did. That's really another part of the game they like to play, is all of this stuff. That's why they point fingers and they blame shift all the time. And a lot of times we've heard that, like the target, the survivor, point something out, like, hey, we call them out on a particular behavior that was a bit hurtful or what have you. And then the abuser comes back and oftentimes will say, well, if you hadn't have said or did this, then I wouldn't have done that. And many of us have heard that. And it's all a projection game for them. They want their target to internalize it and accept fault for it, when it's not the target's fault. The target didn't say or do anything. A lot of times the abuser, when they do that, they'll make stuff up. And so it's like, wait a minute. Yeah, they'll make something up in their head that they think we said or did that we didn't say or do. And so it's a way for them to deflect the fact that they got caught. I mean, really, it's like when they get upset, they're not really upset at anybody. They're more upset at themselves because they got caught. And they don't feel guilty for dishing out the abuse. They feel guilty for getting caught. And so we realized that. It's like, okay, yeah, because in their mind, they're not doing anything wrong. If they're normal, which we now know is not normal, but to them, it's all they know.
Is the final destination here generally like leaving said relationship? I mean, how often do these abusers rehabilitate themselves, to create a more, uh, you know, powerful relationship between the two? Or is it just more of a matter, if you think that you've become a target, is it about doing whatever you can to, break any ties you have with them?
Yeah, that latter one right there is usually the final outcome. Once we have identified the red flag, then we know we've done the Googling, we've done the research and things like that. And so we're identifying those red flags and we called them out on it. And okay, they maybe did superficially apologize, but they keep engaging in the same behavior. So that just lets us know right there they don't want to change. And so they're not going to. Because remember, for us to change, we have to want to, right? There you go. They don't want to. So oftentimes is for the survivor to get out, and we have that, full no contact. That depends on a lot of things. And then of course, limited no contact. So, however, the dynamic is basically like what's the relationship or what is the connection, so there's a lot of factors that go into it as to which form of no contact will go. For a lot of us that have been able to go full no contact, that's usually been because we don't have kids with them, because they were just a roommate, coworker, what have you. If it's a family member, many of us find with family, it's usually going to have to be limited no contact. And really a big way for that is that we cut them off at the soul level. In other words, we don't give them our empathy or our sympathy because everybody's got a choice to make. Either you can choose to not keep dishing out the abuse and truly take responsibility and accountability for it and do the inner work that they need to do as well. We all have to do that as we grow and mature. But we find out a lot of times these abusers, that because that's all they know and it's all we've gotten them what they want is, like I said a little bit ago, that they don't want to change. Because, we've seen the meme and a lot of times like, okay, so they said they were sorry, but they're not changing their behavior. They keep doing it. So like, okay. So we find ways, we learn, we plan the escape, we get out, we get with others who we can relate to, and whatever resources available, they're out there. There are tons of different avenues to explore for getting the right help and things like that to get out of there. And then, of course, many of us have had to file protective orders. And sometimes it goes that way. It depends. Again, a lot of things, but most of the time we just end up, leaving, and that's that, because a lot of them, they never made the effort to start with while we were with them to reconcile. That's the other thing we come to learn, is that a lot of them, they don't want to reconcile. After all, they like that chaos and drama. They want to hold on to their grudges. Okay, they don't want to reconcile with anyone. They always will see the target as their enemy. And that takes a while to wrap the head around, because for those of us, we don't go around looking at people like that. We're like, what? No. And it just, yeah, we work through that, but they truly do. Anything that the abuser views as a threat is going to be an enemy to the abuser in their own mind, even though their targets and other survivors, they don't think that way. It's like they're not going out trying to see what they can steal, kill, and destroy like a narc abuser is doing. But the narc abuser thinks that everybody thinks the same way they do. And it's like, no. But that's a big part of it. And so they'll hold grudges, and they don't they don't forgive. They don't know how to do that. They don't want to. I mean, they like to hang on to all of that.
I've heard it said before about forgiveness. I love this phrasing of its, I guess, definition or what it means to forgive, which is to give up the right forever to use a actual or perceived transgression against you to your advantage. That's to forgive, right? So that anytime we say forgive but don't forget or whatever, like all of that is not really forgiving. But to be able to never again call upon your having been wronged so that you get advantage out of bringing up a past endeavor, right, to your advantage, that's true forgiveness. And when I heard that, I was like, right. I mean, that makes total sense. And that is really intense. And it sounds like for an abuser, though, they would never do that. I mean, they're actually piling this stuff up as an arsenal, right? That's the opposite of what they'd want to do.
Exactly. And I've not heard of that, but that really is a fantastic explanation for forgiveness. And it really is, because, because if we hold on to that, what would eventually happen? It would turn our heart bitter. See, this is why we realize the abusers, they have bitter hearts. So they're going to go around and keep treating people badly because of their bitter hearts, because they're hanging on to all of that and not forgiving. And see, when we can't forgive somebody else, and like you say, that really is our advantage when we do that, so we can overcome, and then also so we can forgive ourselves for even falling for it. So that's something that the abusers definitely don't. No, they want to hang on to all that negative stuff and not forgive, because, well, they don't think that it's their fault. They don't think that they did any wrong. They truly convince themselves of their own lies and of the fantasy that they have created in their own mind as to how that relationship was supposed to go. And so they can, use that because the relationship didn't go the way they envisioned it. That's another way they can turn around and blame the target for not following their script, if you will. And so that's why it ended badly. Not because of the abuse. They're not even going to look at that. The abuse that they dished out. No. It's always going to be the target's fault, because the target didn't follow their perceived role in the relationship. Especially, and I mentioned this before, but especially when their target starts to make improvements in their life, like they change their diet for the better, they start exercising, they start, doing things that as they grow and mature, like, you know what, you don't like the way it's going right now, then we're going to do something to improve that. Oh, yeah, the narcissistic abuser cannot stand it. And oftentimes, that's when the true colors will come out, is when the target of the survivor starts to do things a little differently for bettering their lives. And that abuser cannot stand to see those positive changes taking place. So the abuser will lash out even more. And that's a lot of the time when we start to notice it, is when we've done something a little different to make that improvement for a better life. As when we see that the metaphorical mask slip a lot of times, and we're like, hold on a second. You would think that they would be on board with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, in a relationship, it's supposed to be teamwork, and you would think that they would want to be inspired by that. You would think that they would want to go, hey, I like what you're doing. How about you teach me, or something like that, right? But no, because after all, the abuser wants full control, and these abusers do not like to see other people successful. They don't like to see anyone like what they would perceive as doing better than them. Okay, because that's how they go around. So if the target or survivor, for example, let's say the survivor gets a promotion at work. Okay, that's leveling up. Oh, narcissistic abuser is not gonna like that. No, because a lot of us have heard, like, for any kind of level up in our lives, we've heard from the abuser, that's not fair. And I'm like, okay. But, it's like, who said that as an adult? Only a toddler says stuff like that. But it does, it throws us for a loop when they do that. Like, excuse me, and, the survivor put in the work, they put in the dedication, that they had the drive, the determination to earn whatever level up that was. But the abuser, now there's another way the abuser might go with that though as well, is try to ride on the coattails of the survivor's success too. So it goes both ways, that discernment. And it's also going to depend on the flavor of the abuser as well. We're starting to uncover, quite a few flavors of it's the variation and how they dish out the abuse.
Like their style, right? Some people are violent, some people are manipulative, some people use bad language or yell or a combination of all of that, right? That's sort of their modus operandi there. You got to figure out how they go about their day doing this and implementing their abuse.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it right there. Absolutely. And so, and there will be a combination more often than not of several different things. And then like how they say a gaslight may be a little bit different, but it's still a gaslight. Like it's going to have like a backhanded compliment, like a little love bomb and then a devalue. So there's many different variations of, that's called a gaslight, right? So various flavors of those as well.
Right, like, hey, dinner was pretty good tonight, unlike the other night when you dried out the turkey or something like that. That would be a backhanded compliment.
Exactly. All kinds of things like that. And then, we catch on to this stuff. That was a very good example, by the way. Yeah, but that is very classic. Absolutely. And they also, they'll come up with, here's another example. Let's say the narc and the survivor go out to a restaurant to eat.
All right, this is the last one, and then we do have to only have a couple of minutes left, and I want you to tell everybody how they can find you. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, real quick. The two of them order a meal, and so the narc, sees the meal of the survivor that comes out, looks great, right? But the narc dinner looks great too. But because the narc is always in competition, the narc is going to find something to nitpick at the survivor's meal and says, well, that looked great, but it could use a little something like that.
Right. They can never just let it be nice and be done.
Bingo. There you go.
Why don't you leave us with something nice? So first tell everybody where they can find you, and then give me any final thoughts you have.
All right. Yes, sure. Everybody can always find me at 704-245-4340, or you can send me an email at michelle.dickey@cdhrwdrmd.org. And that is the website as well. That's the cdhrwdrmd.org. And there's a video request link and then a contact form on there. They can reach me that way. So there's several different ways. And there's also a chat feature on the website as well. And so they can reach out that way and we go from there. Any questions they may have, or if they want to make a video request, we take those as well. All right. So as always, I want to thank everybody, all right, for tuning in, sending love and light to all fellow warriors. Thank you for watching, listening, and for your support. Till next time, let's show some gratitude to the Heavenly Father, and you keep being you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Michelle Dickey, trauma specialist and founder at Consulting for Heightened Awareness. A pleasure as always. I am Ross Morasso. Until next time.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.